Hello and welcome to the Namma Bengaluru podcast. Today we have with us a very interesting person who has spent her life in rejuvenating lakes. We'd like to welcome Miss Usha Rajagopalan. She is a writer, translator, conservationist based in Bengaluru. After her MA in English literature, she worked as an editor at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and an assistant executive to Dr. Verghese Kurian, then chairman, National Dairy Development Board in Anand, also known as the Milkman of India. She co founded the Puttanalli Neighborhood Lake Improvement Trust, well known as PNLIT, which has been nurturing the lake from 2010. Usha and her team have won several accolades for their conservation activities. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Vinod. Thank you.
And a pleasure to have you, and especially as a lake conservationist in Bangalore, to have you on board. And at the outset, I'd like to go into the first question to ask you as to what inspired you to take up the conservation of Puttanalli Kere, also proudly or known as the Puttakere in JP Nagar.
Guilt. Seeing it dying, I
Yeah.
felt that by keeping quiet,
Yeah.
I am as responsible for its demise as
Okay.
the municipality to whom the lake belongs. So, in one word, guilt.
Yeah. Okay, actually taking up the ownership, maybe, you felt maybe very guilty in terms of actually looking at the lake dying, and then, maybe you must have thought that there is something that will. So, how did the Puttanalli Neighborhood Lake Improvement Trust sort of coin the idea, and how did you actually sort of take up this initiative to, sort of look at this lake and to, rejuvenate it and restore it, and how did this thought process and how did you put everything together?
Actually, PNLIT was formed after BBMP had started rejuvenating the lake.
Okay,
Earlier, the campaign was Save the Lake
okay,
campaign, in
okay.
which I got three other residents from my apartment complex to join hands with me. And we mooted this campaign and got BBMP to revive the lake. And once BBMP started the rejuvenation, we realized that they needed eyes and ears on the ground.
Yeah.
So we voluntarily became that.
Yeah.
And we would give them updates on what is happening in the lake, etc. And in 2010 June, we actually registered the trust with three others, Aarti Mane, Prasanna Vainatheya, and O.P. Ramaswamy, in
Okay.
order to assist BBMP with the post-rejuvenation maintenance. That
Okay.
was simply the intent. And the very next month, in July
Yeah.
2010, together with BBMP, we did a public tree plantation drive. We
Wow.
planted together 125 saplings, to
Yeah.
which we invited residents in the area to come. It was inaugurated by the MLA, and
Yeah.
residents in the area came and planted. So from 2010, 125 saplings,
Yeah.
today we have more than 500 trees, all planted by residents. So
Wow.
the idea behind PNLIT was actually just to assist BBMP with the maintenance of the lake to ensure that it doesn't relapse, because
Yeah.
BBMP has spent a lot of money in rejuvenating the lake, and if
Yeah.
we don't maintain it, it
Yeah.
all comes apart.
Very true, ma'am. Very true. In fact, my next question is coining in from that. In fact, to do a lake revival, not a small thing, because a lake is such a biodiversified and ecological sort of land and water union. And I don't know how you really took this up. And when we look at it, in fact, in terms of planting trees and in terms of looking and improving the biodiversity, I think in terms of the area's water table as well as the climate also must have improved from the time that the lake has actually been rejuvenated and slowly improved in terms of the biodiversity in the area.
One thing that helped us was actually our complete lack of knowledge in conservation.
Okay.
The four of us came from different backgrounds.
Okay.
But what we did was to rope in experts in the different fields, whether it was planting trees, whether it was enhancing the biodiversity, whether it was hydraulic consultant. We got people on board. So we actually tapped resources from wherever we could.
No, no, that's a lot of time that you've spent on the lake, and especially when you look at those 15 years and going back from scratch to where it is today, we find the lake rejuvenated and always having water. I think even in fierce summer, like what we're actually staring into. And that has been because of the various initiatives that you have taken, and especially the tree initiative. I think urban forestry and the lake is the best place to have the entire, what do you call, flora and fauna, which is very important because I think there's a lot of birds and there's a lot of animals that also survive with the lake and in this ecological, very, very ecological and biodiversified place. Don't you think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You started off by mentioning the water, and actually, soon after BBMP rejuvenated the lake in 2009-10, the very first monsoon we found the lake was not filling up because the
Mm.
feeder drains were not sufficient. Some
Yeah.
of them were not even active. So, what we did was to get a total station survey done of the area,
Mm.
and our lake is actually between Brigade Millennium Apartment Complex and L&T South City of Banargata Road. And we found that with the force of water, the surface
Yeah.
runoff from Brigade Millennium Avenue could be diverted into the lake. So BBMP Lakes actually created that diversion channel. It
Okay.
helped in two ways. One is, of course, to the surface
Yeah.
runoff, increase the level in the, and also to prevent flooding further down on 24th May. So it
Yeah.
was sort of a win-win situation.
Yeah.
But we also found that even that was not enough. And we went together with BBMP, we met the pollution KSPCB Pollution Control Board, and we jointly assumed responsibility. This is way back in 2015 that I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yes.
So
Yes.
from May 2015 to today, we
Yeah.
are actually getting treated water from the STP of South City Apartment Complex.
Wow, that's a really good thing. In fact, that's the next question that I'm coming up on water conservation. When you look at it, when all the flats, in fact, we are going vertical. In fact, Bangalore doesn't have space as we speak, and the city has really outgrown the sort of size for the per capita consumption of residential blocks. So when you look at in terms of the grey water, as they call it, not only the rainwater harvesting, but the grey water is also an important thing. How did you manage and what is the sort of water capacity now, ma'am, even during summer? Because of this consistent running or rather the supply of water, I think the lake has survived even summer also.
Yes, definitely the evaporation has caused the water to recede from the edges. So a
Yes.
bit of the higher
Yeah.
portions of the lake bed
Yes.
are exposed. But by and large, we do have water, which means lots of birds actually. We have an aerator fountain in order to aerate the water, improve the quality.
Yeah.
And secondly, what the earlier we used to get about 4 to 5 lakh liters a day of
Okay.
excess treated water. But
Yeah.
recently, what from last October, what the apartment complex did was
Yeah.
to retrofit even the older blocks with a dual
Okay.
pipeline. So
Okay.
they are using, if they process about 10 lakh liters a day, they are using about 8 lakh liters themselves. So
Okay.
actually, we are getting only 2 lakhs, 2 to 3 lakhs per day.
Physics of water. Okay. Very true. Very true. I think that's a great example of how to save water and that too as a community. I think
Yes.
the community saving is more important when you say that individual traps have to be fitted and all that. It's fine. But as a community, when you do it in lakhs and liters of water. Coming to the next question, ma'am, I was just thinking in terms of, when you look at the water aquifers and the water table, do you think that in your area, after, reviving the lake, has that also helped? Because I heard that whenever there is, like the CBD area, when we say about Alsur Lake and Sankey Tank and the entire CBD area still has water, and the borewell depth has not gone down like the suburbs today, like Whitefield or for that matter Sarjapur, where they are finding it difficult because it has even dropped by 300 feet. The water table and the water aquifers have been exhausted. Do you think by rejuvenating lakes, even the water aquifers, it helps to also refill the water aquifers on the groundwater table?
Definitely, no doubt about it.
Yes.
Actually, I told you that we get experts to help out.
Yeah.
One thing that we would like actually to do a study is on borewells around the area. For
Yeah.
us, the indicator is that the number of commercial borewells around Puttakere, especially after it has been rejuvenated, has
Yeah.
gone up.
Okay. Okay.
So that should be telling enough
Yes.
about how
Yes.
the water table is getting recharged.
Very fast. Yeah. No, that's very important because, in fact, when we look at rainwater harvesting, to, conserve the sort of rainwater that we get close to about 14 TMC of rainwater every year, because, Bangalore has very good monsoons of more than 5 to 6 months. in a year. And I think, that is one runoff that is happening because of the various issues that we have in the encroachment. What do you think about the Rajakalways and the stormwater drains? And don't you think so that they also need to be actually sort of cleaned and desilted in time in the summer so that we can actually catch up with the monsoons and fill the lakes?
See, definitely, first of all, the encroachments should be removed, whether it is in a lake premises on the lake bund or whether on the stormwater drain or
Yes.
Rajakalways. Encroachments need to be removed because lakes need to be fed. The easiest way to kill a lake is actually build upon it or send raw sewage into it. And
Mm.
then, when once the lake is full of sewage, you declare it as a mosquito breeding ground and then you
Yes.
fill it up. And once the lake is filled up, you are not ever going to reclaim it. So,
Yes.
it is absolutely imperative that not only the community comes together, but every single department
Yeah.
comes together to ensure that lakes are, so they are protected from all these encroachments. They are reservoirs for good surface runoff. So the
Yes.
rainwater drains, the stormwater drains, the
Yes.
Raja Kalways need to
Mm.
be protected,
Yes.
need to be cleaned and need to
Mm.
be protected.
Mm.
And genuinely, I think it's a hugely critical issue
Yeah.
because we have lost hundreds of lakes all these years. And
Yes.
at least now, if we
Yeah.
don't protect the existing lakes,
Yeah.
as a city, we are finished.
Very true. Like inside the
Yes.
lake, what do you actually find, and how do you purify the water inside the lake?
So, two things we have done. One is, of course, as I told you, we stopped the sewage immediately. And incidentally, today we have met the MLA and requested him to shift the garbage transfer point
Wow.
somewhere
Okay.
else.
Okay.
And what we do within the lake is to have an aerator fountain. This was
Yes.
actually, we installed it in 2019. It was our retirement gift to the then chief engineer, Mr.
Okay.
B.V. Satish. In
Okay.
April 2019, he
Okay.
inaugurated the fountain. Another
Okay.
thing that we have done is ever since we started getting treated water into the lake, we came up with this concept of hydroponics. So
Yes.
in these floating platforms, we have we grow different kinds of biofilter plants.
Okay.
So these purify the water. This is still a work in progress because we used to use PVC pipe, and
Yeah.
in the long run, PVC is not good. So
Yeah.
now we have switched over to bamboo ladders. Please, we buy bamboo ladders, we put a
Yeah.
mesh on top and below, and we
Okay.
insert different kinds of plants.
Yeah.
And who loves it the most is the birds in the lake.
Okay. Wow, that's really good. In
And
fact,
one more thing I would
yes.
like to add, Vinod, in this
Yeah.
context is that every quarter
Yeah.
we test samples of water from 5 different points in the lake.
Okay.
We get
Okay.
it tested ourselves to an accredited lab so
Okay.
that we know what is actually happening on the ground. Of course, we can see, but
Yes.
we also want to know that the measures that we take
Yes.
are helping the lake.
Very true. I think in terms of testing the quality of water, and
Yes.
as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So you have reinvented how to make the ladder useful, and bamboo ladders that will float also easily on the lake is another idea. And I think that's a great idea that when you actually get your hands on and your hands dirty, you learn a lot of things on the job. That way.
That's the only way to learn.
Yes, yes, very true. Also, I was just thinking in terms of when you have let's say, how about the flooding in your area? I think that also would have definitely stopped. There should not be
Oh,
any floods
yes.
anymore.
The
Yeah.
last time it flooded, I was told, was in 2005. And 2016, July, our lake overflowed for the first time after rejuvenation. And
Okay.
that was really a landmark for us because
Yes.
BBMP had rejuvenated the lake in 2009-10.
Yeah.
And the ground was so parched that
Yes.
till then,
Yes.
all the water that was going in was going underground. And then
Yes.
with the Brigade Millennium Avenue Road water coming in, with treated water coming in, the
Yes.
ground got saturated,
Yeah.
and the lake overflowed for the first time in July 27th of
Wow.
2016.
Is a very, very easily what you call encroachable body when you look at it, especially if it is not fenced, the inner fence and the outer fence. If you don't have, in fact, at Namma Bengaluru Foundation, we used to do that first, when we have actually worked on the lakes with the freedom fighter. Dr.
Doris.
Mr. Doraswamy and all that, and the lakes and the Kere Habbas we used to have. So, how do you think, ma'am, and how do you sort of involve the community to have this small Kere Habbas and to make this lake body a little more interesting? And what sort of events and activities do you do so that there is more stakeholders come and join you?
See, actually, our events have gone down a little bit now.
Okay,
Okay. First of all, we no longer have an MOU with BBMP.
okay, okay. Yeah,
Okay, it
yeah.
was stopped from 2020. And
Okay.
we are requesting BBMP to renew our MOU so that
Yeah.
we can
Yes.
actually involve the community better.
Yes.
But we must have, from 2010 July, from
Yeah.
the first tree plantation drive, that
Yeah.
year itself, we had a nature walk. We
Okay.
had a Children's Day celebration. We
Yeah.
conduct lots of programs like theater workshops and
Yeah.
bio blitz. Most
Yeah.
of our programs are actually targeted at children
Yeah.
because through them it is easier to convince the adults.
Adults, yes. Very true, very true. I think that's how most of the Kere Habbas are being held.
No,
Makala
actually,
Kere Habba.
we have had Kere Haba only once.
Okay, okay,
I think it was in 2015 February,
okay.
and we did not do it subsequently because, first of all, the space is very small. We
Yes,
literally have only the pathway around the lake to
yes.
have anything. And
Okay.
secondly, for
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
genuinely,
yeah.
every day is a Kirehaba.
Okay, yeah.
We
Very true.
celebrate the lake
Yes,
every day. We
yes,
want the community to celebrate it every day. So
yes.
it's not a 1 year thing. It is a daily thing.
I think that's really good, ma'am, and I think yeah, kudos to you and your team and the entire community there for actually sort of what do you call getting their hands dirty and really working with the entire parastatal agencies. It's been nice talking to you. Case study and an example of how you can revive really a nearly a dead lake to where it is and full of life today. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the podcast and for joining us today, and thank you for your time. And wish you all
Thank
the
you so
best.
much for inviting me. Thank you so much.